to believe in the Bharat story, and you're playing a tremendously important role, sir. I would like to ask you, I know that you believe in the Bharat story as much as we all of us do, but why? Because you definitely had a fantastic career in academics, and you've done many hats, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's IMF, WTO. Why do you believe in the Bharat story?
Well, Kishore, let me first say that I believe in the Bharat story, but I also believe in Prime Minister Modi.
Oh, that requires a round of applause for sure.
So, as Bharat story progresses, and while Prime Minister Modi leads us here, I think anybody who is looking for where the big actions are going to happen in the coming decades has to be here. It is a country that is today growing faster than any other major economy by a fairly large margin, actually. And this is a story that is going to continue for some years to come. I think that's a very good reason for us all to be here. Also, I think, one of the things to remember is that demographically, we are the only major big country which is not only large and young, but also growing in population. Most other countries are getting older, shrinking in population and all. So a lot of the action is going to originate here, even if, I believe actually we'll still see a lot more Indians around the globe for the simple reason that this is a rising nation and with a large population, with populations in the other parts of the world shrinking. So I think a whole lot is going to be coming in the next couple of decades from here.
Absolutely, can't agree more with the fact that you believe in Sri Narendra Modi, as all of us here do believe. So, coming to the next question, Doctor, I was born exactly 96 days after Madam Indira Gandhi imposed the emergency. The way today's generation call themselves Gen Z, millennial, different lingos, I call myself an emergency kid. So I think it can't get worse than that when it comes to the country's situation. And I think whatever we are going to see in the future or whatever we are seeing now is better, will be better. So typically if you take emergency as a point in time in the Indian history, that was roughly about 25 years. And then we had 91, another pivotal moment where we went into liberalization. And then 2014 when the Narendra Modi government took over, and we are 10 years into it, and we have another 25 years to go for Viksit Bharat. Where do you think from that period, where, okay, politically we were at a lowest point, where do you think we have moved? And where do you think economically we are jumping in this era?
Well, actually, for many years after you were born, the dark era of India actually continued, at least for an economist.
Yeah, I experienced it subconsciously.
Possibly so, but I was very much conscious. So, you were lucky to have been subconscious at the time. Unfortunately, I saw it unfold. Sanjeev Sanyal just talked about these processes and all. But boy, he has no idea what India was actually in the days of license permit Raj. I mean, that's something I document very extensively, and it took me, it was a very painful process. But I just wanted to show to our younger generation that that is how complex and complicated India used to be, and what the businessmen in those days had to go through. I mean, what they have to go through today is nothing. So I documented that actually in spite of a lot of painful months that I had to spend writing this in my latest book called The Nehru Development Model. So we really came out of something that was very, very counterproductive, unproductive, and growth retarding. when the 1991 reforms happened. And now, of course, that part of the history has really become history. Most of our youngsters, Gen Z, simply don't know anything about it. But now, of course, as we go forward, a lot of big things are going to happen. Now, the freedom that has come to the entrepreneurs and that freedom interacting with the massive technological changes that are happening are going to really bring about a very different world. And I'm very pleased, India will be a part of this story. And I think, at least some of that story I will still get to see unfold.
Yeah, absolutely true. I've also only heard stories of this, though early part of 90s I did witness, because I remember few distinct events, when my friend got his telephone connection in 3 years, we celebrated. He gave us a treat because he got his landline connection in 3 years. And one of my clients even said that he ordered a Bajaj scooter in 1971. It was delivered to him in 1979. So that was a fantastic achievement. 8 years for one Chetak scooter. So that was the condition. I don't think so this generation will know it, but it's important to know because you never want to go back. So continuing on that, I'm going to put forward a little politically charged, but a hypothetical situation. The whole world is moving towards right. And the recent American elections have proved that Trump is elected, and India is well on the right path and on the right path, pun intended. So hypothetically, democracy has its fault lines. Hypothetically assuming that if we had a disposition change, do you ever think that we would swing back to the Nehruvian model, which you often talk and quote about? And follow up on this is, what should the current government do to insulate us from the pendulum swinging back to the era? Because you also see the political overtones from the opposition. It's freebies, reservation, and all side of leftist model, which will be a rollback of all the reform. I just fear that, are we going back to an era of total chaos? So what do we do to insulate, and do you ever think this pendulum will swing on the left?
Yeah. Look, you're being a little too dramatic, I should say. Because
I think that's the best I can get from you.
Because it is true that there are some freebies happening and subsidies being offered and all. But look, these are things that are a part of democracy. In elections, some populism will always be there. And the process of freebies is a part of that populism. What we should ensure is that, as a part of this populism, we do not put in freebies of the kind which involve large expenditures and they become permanent expenditures. If it is a one-time freebie that's being given, that is okay, that's tolerable actually. And
But political parties seem to always quote everything under welfare and not freebies. The classification just changes.
No, that's okay. I mean, by whatever name you call it, actually, even in the official language, some things are subsidies, some things are freebies, some things are, programs, they involve transfers. Sometimes you use the word transfer, but at the end of the day, when no productive activity is being undertaken as a counterpart of an expenditure, it is basically, you can call it freebie, you can call it subsidy, you can call it a transfer. But to your larger question, could we go back to the socialist model with which we started? My answer is no. And I'll tell you why. Democracy has a built-in kind of inertia. Things change slowly. But it is also the case that when a change happens in democracy, it is sustained. It is a sustainable change. It's not like what is now we are observing in China, for instance. When Mao Zedong died, Deng Xiaoping came in, and he said, okay, we are going to now switch to the markets. He could do it relatively fast, much faster than it happened in India, because that was an authoritarian system. And our reforms took time, they were slower, and we are still continuing. I think there are still a number of things that were done in the 70s which still have not been fixed up. Labor laws, there are some land-related issues, but they are being fixed up. Also, there has been some reversal during the UPA 2 rule, the new Land Acquisition Act that came in. We had that retrospective taxation that happened at that time. So, a number of things, but nevertheless, the trend continues to be towards liberalization. And in a broader sense, some bumps we had along the way, farm laws were tried but could not be implemented. But unlike China, where today once Xi Jinping decided that he wanted to go back, I think that turning back of the clock is also happening very rapidly. That, I think, is not going to happen in a democratic system. So the trend of the change now is, at least I don't see a scenario in which it could be actually, the clock could be turned back.
Okay, thank you. That's extremely positive to note that we can't swing back. So coming to your core area of competence where you are the chairman of the Finance Commission, see, you do visit a lot of states understanding the debt to GSDP, this expenditure pattern, and obviously the tax share. I come from Tamil Nadu. You know the complaint that comes from my state. So is the fair share, I know today morning the Honorable Finance Minister did dwell on this topic, and she did say that it's perfectly distributed as per the Finance Commission's recommendation, and it's done on time. So no questions on that, not even questioning that. But do you think this is just a political overtone that keeps happening always in discussion in terms of the state share, number one? Number two, ever do you think the Finance Commission will put a recommendation to stop freebies completely? Very critical question politically and economically for a nation that's planning to grow at this rate.
No. I mean, Finance Commission is concerned with the macroeconomic stability, and insofar as freebies may have an implication for macroeconomic stability, it will say things. Although in the end, it is not the remit of the Finance Commission to stop this or that. These are decisions by the governments, and many of these. So one of the things you should understand is that many of the transfers that are made are also part of your welfare system. And it is not quite so simple to distinguish something that is a part of welfare system or something that is a kind of waste. The line is not so sharp between these. And in any case, at the end of the day, it is the state governments as well as the central government which have to take the call. So that is where we stand, and to your question about the politics behind this and so forth, it's really, I don't call it politics because, this is something in which the interest of every state is at stake, and every state is going to therefore make the pitch that they get what they think is their fair share. As an example, we systematically hear in every state that we have visited that, the current share of the states in the divisible pool, in the shareable pool of tax revenues is 41%. Then raise it to 50%.
Yeah. Every state is asking
Every state is going to say that. So it is fair game. But at the end of the day, I think Finance Commission luckily has been one of the bodies which has been very professional, generally non-controversial, and it has kept a low profile. And ultimately, whatever Finance Commission recommends, states and the central government have generally accepted it. So this is one area where actually we continue to follow a tradition which has been set by 15 previous Finance Commissions, and I am very much hopeful that the same will be true of the 16th as well.
Yeah. So all of us here have one question, and this is also from my personal end. See, I always say in the pyramid of income inequalities, where the top portion has a large chunk of the income and the middle portion is there, I always say, the middle class crisis is bigger than the midlife crisis.
Kishore,
Okay?
sorry interrupting, just before we miss the moment, sir mentioned about the impossibility of things reverting, moving back in a democracy. But we saw how the rights-based approach came during the UPA years, and effective doubling down on socialism happened at that time. Sir, also, because the session is about Bharat and you coming back to Bharat, I also want to know from you, sir, I believe somewhere earlier you have mentioned how the space for liberal economics was squeezed and there was a purge where if you were a liberal economist on the conservative side, in the sense, the political conservative right and liberal economist in that sense, free market economics, you had no place in India. And that's why perhaps you went to Colombia. And now you have come back, the space has been created, something on that.
No. So I had come here at the beginning of Prime Minister Modi's tenure as well. I spent 3 years here. And my return had to do with the fact that Colombia doesn't give you extended leave, further extended leave. But after a few years, I could get leave again. So my heart is here, and so I came back here. Now, on the other issue that you raised during the UPA, some of the reversals that happened and all. So this is where I was making the argument that in democracy, things do change slowly. And the 14 or 15 years under Prime Minister Nehru, when socialism found its roots, had a lasting impact. Whether you look at the politicians, you look at the bureaucrats, you look even, especially at economists, businessmen, because of this inheritance that the next generation comes, the younger come in, they learn from the older ones, they imbibe the same kind of philosophy. So this socialism really became a part of our DNA, and which is the reason ultimately it took a long time. Whole world had actually changed, perhaps other than Africa. The markets had been embraced. We were among the very last ones. A country like China, which was communist, adopted it in the late 70s, but for us it took till 1991. So this is basically, the fact of this socialism having become a part of the DNA, and the newer generation, particularly even till today, if you look at the economics teaching in India, it is still being largely taught by the left of center, very far left of center economists. They may not put it that way, but the essential point is that there are no advocates of markets among the teachers at colleges in India. And a few handful of those who do believe in it and advocate it, people like me, generally have been educated in the United States or had spent some time either in Asia outside or in the United States. So there is, therefore there is this built-in inertia in the change. Nevertheless, the trend is very clear. Sometimes you get into these obstacles, and we saw that happen to the farm laws, but that doesn't mean that the overall change is not moving forward. Actually, we had the bankruptcy code brought in, we had the GST brought in, corporate profit tax was cut to 17% for new manufacturing investments, 25% for the others. So a number of changes that you would say pro-market changes have continued to happen.